You dive. Wind rushes past your face as the sea of black sand spreads out before you. The translucent bubbles of colony dome cities dot the landscape. You're rejoining the earth your people left behind. You just wish this time wasn't so dire. Your island is sinking. Can you save it?
What's going on YouTube? Earth Power here, joined by the creator of Dust to Dust. You know him, you love him, Spencer Swan.
Hello, everyone.
And we're here to talk about Dust to Dust. So this is kind of going to be a little podcasty for us. And I want to start with like initial reactions and kind of go down the train from there. But yeah, you guys have been seeing the content that we've been posting over the past couple of weeks. The Kickstarter is starting to close. We'll have 7 days as of our recording this today. Um, so yeah, I mean, where I want to start with you, Spencer, and we've got Christian on the ones and twos if he wants to say hello. But
Hey, everybody.
where I want to there he is. Where I want to start with you is, give me your quick elevator pitch. Like, what do you want the people to know about this Kickstarter campaign? What do you want people to know just about the game? How do you pitch it to somebody if you're literally standing in the elevator and you want someone to buy in? What are you telling people?
Sure. Yeah, so Dust to Dust is a competitive deck building card game. I think about it a lot as kind of a pocket trading card game in some ways. I designed it very much for the expert trading card game player to have these huge efficient combos and really think through this high skill ceiling kind of game that is really, really approachable if they want to play with their friends who haven't played Magic or Yu-Gi-Oh or Kaijudo before. And they can sit down at a table all together with one pretty affordable set of cards that has millions and millions of possibilities to play different games and all have a great time. Even if somebody wants to explore the outer edges of the mechanics, the new player can still have a great time, come in, see the world, have deep lore as an experience, and everybody can continue to play card games together in person, which was my other big focus here of making this a physical game.
Yeah, I will speak to that. It's just, ever since, and I reference back to Kaijudo because that was the last time, at least I was super active with the TCG, and you guys know that. I stopped recording content when that game went away. But having something physical in my hands to sit in front of, Gorbate, who, we still kept up after Kaijudo, but, I think you talk about the glue of our group, and I'm sure you can speak to this too, Spencer. Everybody knows you. It's not like I'm introducing someone who's brand new to this channel, but, it's that glue is what held us together. It's what brought us together. And then, we played through it and it created, what is this now lasting friendship, and kind of getting back to that with this thing with Dust to Dust, this game that your child essentially, it's really cool. So definitely
Yeah,
wanted to see that.
it's how we
Um,
grew up, right? I
yeah,
mean, we met when Christian and I were 12, I think. We played at least 3 different games together. If you only count the physical ones, we had Hearthstone and Legends and all the digital ones. And I
yeah,
feel like the arc was so interesting for me as like a 12-year-old going to comic shops and just getting destroyed by 25-year-olds with money at the card shop and like losing in the tournaments. And then we kind of weirdly became those guys
yeah,
and traveled, right? And won plane tickets and went to the tournament. And now I feel like we are grown up adults, right? That may not have the time or inclination and money to sink into, okay, now we really want to like level up into pro Magic players, right? We all have career paths, we all have houses, we all have
right.
commitments and partners and pets and all these
I'm
things, but like
I'm
I love playing card
trying
games
to
with you.
invest in this now. Yeah.
Yeah, like the one of my inspirations was like we meet up and I'm looking forward to doing it again almost every Thanksgiving to Cube, right? And we sit down with each other and we play Kaijudo again for like the one time in the year that we get to do it and have a blast and just stay up until like 3 in the morning.
Yeah, yeah.
and
We
Kajuda.
revert to those like late teenager years again, and you're right. And I think that's to speak to and I'm going to keep circling back to Dust, but this is like board game night, but it's so catered to us, what we're looking for. And what I kind of wanted to gear towards, and you touched on it a minute ago, was for the competitive TCG player, the guy who goes out, spends all of his money on these games, and does what we did when and you got at that 25-year-old with money level. Now we don't have to at least spend all that time and do all that grinding. But getting back to how are you pitching this to the more casual game night player? What's the allure for them to want to get into it? That when there's other games out there that not similar, but it's the same concept. It's a deck builder. What's the pitch there?
Sure. So for the more experienced trading card game player, there is a really, really high skill ceiling in the core mechanic of this game, which is the ability to proactively remove cards from your deck. Uh,
Yeah.
that mechanic has really not been explored in the deck building genre by and large, outside of isolated individual cards or factions. Whether you talk about Dominion and having Chapel, or Star Realms and having the red faction, things like Slay the Spire that have a kind of like pay to remove a card from the build, it has never been about that as a central mechanic, right? It's not about building this like cheap, efficient little engine that you then stuff and suspend with as many victory points as you can. That's never been a main focus of any of these games. So I think that's really the huge selling point for um, this more competitive player that's looking for, how do I make as efficient a little thing as I can? How do I have an 8-card deck that wins this game as quickly as possible? And I think putting that puzzle in front of that really experienced player is very interesting with this game, especially as relics change and have some element of variance, and the opponent's actions also change, to plot that kind of optimal course amidst the set of cards that's on the table, along with things like drafting rules. For the more casual kind of board game night, I mean, I think we've worked so hard on art direction, making every card full art, having the world express itself in all of the cards, and actually tell stories between the cards. Like a lot of the characters appear in one card as the main focus, and then as a background character in another. Or a major landmark, like a lot of the Dome City halos can be seen in the background of different cards, and are actually the focus of something like Dome City Generator that is making that force field. You see all of those different things as you sit and interact with the cards. So I think a lot of my focus was on that, right? And along with my illustrator, Bonnie. Um, I think the other thing that I tried to do that I hope you've experienced in testing it is trim down the mechanics.
Yeah.
And I think TCG players will be happy in that cards have variety and there are different interaction patterns. But there are fewer pieces than many trading card games, right? There are several mechanics that are mixed and matched in different and interesting ways. But I think that makes it easier for a new player to understand the cards.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I compared it, I think, in one of my previous videos, or at least I might have touched on it, whether that was in person with some others. But there's a neat chess fact that I looked up when I was just trying, because we talked about the millions of possibilities just in the 30 card ally set. Like, how many different variations can you start the game with?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like 3 million plus.
Yep.
Whereas, and it compares to chess. The fun chess fact is that there's over 9 million variations in the game after just 3 moves. And, chess, as you know, very simple game surface level, and, one of the biggest strategy based games in the world, by and large. But over the course of a game, there's more possible. And I'm just gonna read it for the sake of not trying to paraphrase. But in a complete game of chess, there are more possible combinations than there are electrons in the observable universe. And TCGs in general kind of touch on that, and it's not something you really think about. We learned the word variance playing Kaijudo. That became a trigger word for a lot of guys. But it's the idea here is that on the surface, Dust to Dust is very user friendly, very beautiful, very inviting. The world as a whole that you've created, and I want to get into that here in a moment. But it's gorgeous. And then on top of that, with just how simple some of these cards are, because the text is all very, very easy to read. You follow your or statements, and if anybody who's ever done any basic computer programming, it's like this or that. Okay, cool. I do this or that. It makes sense, but all the different variations that this game can present, from a competitive TCG player like myself, that's super inviting to me. But from a casual player too, it's like, okay, cool. Every game can be different. If I don't have fun with this one variation of the game this one time, that's okay. Let's just change it up and try it again. And okay, this time was a lot of fun. And that's the version you can take to your friends and say, hey, we played it this way. Let's do that again. See what we can do
Yeah.
from there. And it's still a different game because not
Yeah.
everybody's going to draft the same. It's super cool. So,
Or even
like,
try the same set of cards and play entirely differently. And that's
right,
been what's really fun with my playtests when I test with new folks. I almost always try and play two games, and I play radically differently in both of them and make sure that we understand like there are four different lines of progression on the table right now, and
right.
there might be more depending on what you draft. So even the same set of cards can have a really different outcome depending on those deck building choices.
Yeah, and I mean, look at just, I mean, and again, I don't know how many people have been able to, sit and test and really dig into the game like we have, but there's your opening hand. Whether you're having a 3, 4, or 5 buy in your opening hand, that can completely change the game just from turn one. I think that's what I was gearing towards. You talk about those, it's so like 3.6 million variations within the first turn
Mm-hmm.
on every game, based on the 10 cards that you've chosen and how you mix and match those. But 3.6 million just on the first buy, like that's absolutely nuts.
Yeah.
So just it speaks to, hey, it's highly unlikely, but if you ever do have a game that looks similar, write in because we need to know about it. Like something really cool. But we spoke to lore a minute ago, and that's something I really wanted to dig in with you because every conversation I've had with you about the game, just in the past couple of months, and I mean, circle back to 2 years ago when we were doing this on my dining room table at the apartment. You were talking about just how you were trying to create this world and how it all came together. I want to know from inception to now, how did that world come to be? What do you want people to know? Like what fascinates you about this world you've created? Let's get into that for a minute. Talk to me about the lore, and I guess to start, where did your ideas come from? Because I know you've made game references.
For sure. So it actually started for me as a game designer and as a person who makes things with art as an ornament of expression, which is how I think about it when I make a song or when I make a game or when I make anything for other people. Right? Art is kind of a condensation of feelings and impressions and beliefs, and art is very powerful because you can take it in whenever you want. Right? So, unlike a rhetorical argument or seeing somebody on TV or a talking head or YouTube video, you can choose when you want to process different pieces of that art, right? So, the core part of Dust to Dust for me is how do I make positive impact on the people who are playing this game in making them kind of thoughtful about the world we live in. A lot of that comes from climate change, and how the climate is evolving and disintegrating around us, right? And kind of drawing logical or semi-logical sci-fi conclusions from that, and having that be a core part of the game expressing itself. Um, Other pieces of that for me we're connected to some of the Ghibli canon, which I know I've mentioned in a bunch of
Yes.
different marketing materials, and is certainly like climate change and man versus nature, especially as a theme, is so central to Hayao Miyazaki's films, by and large, is often that kind of central tenet. I wanted to take that and turn it a little bit more into kind of an expansive lost world. That part of it sort of comes from the Dark Souls games for me, but wanting the lore to feel cohesive and deep, and like there are specific facts that you can glean, but you can never quite understand the whole picture of. It's another big tenet of writing the lore and figuring that out.
Right.
And then different pieces of it were kind of synthesized from other media, from other game sources, from a bunch of different references. The colony faction actually came to me first as kind of an art direction, and what I approached Bonnie with first as these people that are in armor for a reason, and that they have kind of decided that they need to layer on technology on top of themselves to resist change in a lot of ways. Which phrasing it like that,
Yeah.
a little bit anti-consumerist of me, and I think that's fair.
Yeah. Draw
Um,
your conclusions as you will. Yeah.
yes. Um, so that faction kind of emerged first. Like I wrote the lore paragraph for Colony while I was in Thailand before COVID happened. And then went to Bonnie with that and had different ideas for mechanics as well that also emerged into factions. So the mechanical influence and the game design part of this and like what the cards should do have actually been the core of a lot of the lore as well. So when I worked with Bonnie on art, it wasn't just like I want a guy riding a rhino. Right? It's like this is what this card does. This is the function of this card. This is why it's interesting mechanically. This is a fitting character and symbol and interaction in the world for that person to have to match those mechanics exactly. And I worked with him and coached him quite a lot on is this card, does this feel powerful enough to justify its cost, for example, and its effect? Does it feel like um, a kind of flexible attacker and defender in the War Rhino General example to represent who we want it to? So that's a lot of where it came from. I mean, I'm happy to go into more of what
Yeah.
is the journey of Earth, right? In some ways,
Yeah.
but
And I wanted to speak to that to just for a moment, but yeah, the game feels, and again, you guys can see it from the art that we posted and the set review stuff, but the game feels almost whimsical, but also kind of like post-apocalyptic almost. And I think that's like you said, it's like a Miyazaki film. It's almost, it's you can't quite get a grasp on how you feel about the game until you really just kind of get into it. And even then you're still trying to understand it, at least from an art direction throughout the whole journey. And I think that's fascinating. Instead of just giving someone the answer, yeah, 2 + 2 is 4, it's hey, it's 2 plus whatever you want it to be can also be whatever you want it to be. And it's just that neat kind of idea of just draw and to circle back to what I said earlier, because that's all I'm thinking now. It's just you draw your own conclusion for it. You are who you want to be in this universe, and play to it. And I think you're spot on. Like playing the game, just the past dozen games that I played with it since you sent us the demo, is just you kind of take on this personality every time you start pulling from cards. And I think what I wanted to ask, and the question I have for you, and this is just from just a personal question, something I just wanted to ask personally, is we take on the role of this diver, but like in my mind I was always, because as just a human being on Earth, EARTH,
yeah,
I assume that I'm just part of the colony, and that's where the divers come from. But is that, and maybe that's not completely true, maybe it is. I don't know if that's an answer you want to give away, but like, where did that concept come from, that you were from this floating city and there's these three factions that you're interacting with as you go down? Are you a colony member? Like what's the role of the diver there? Can the divers be Machina? How does that work?
yeah, I really like that headcanon a lot. That's some prime expansion fodder for me. I think the role of the diver, and this was actually very early lore as well, kind of like with the colony as this opposing diametric faction that didn't emerge as cards but emerged as the player character, in that
Right.
I wanted the player to have the flexibility morally and from an aesthetic standpoint, right? Whether that's mechanical, whether that is I really like animals, right? Like
Do I
make
actually
sure that the
buy?
player can choose, right?
Right.
Like they can decide who they want in their party, right? In a lot of ways, and who are they recruiting as an ally. I wanted them to feel like they have a goal, which is restore your island to the sky, and that they can ally with whoever they want to accomplish that goal. They can be whoever they want. as a diver that is coming down to Earth. That being said, I have, at least in my lore notes, and we will maybe see this expressed in an expansion down the line, the divers are actually a member of a civilization that I'm calling the Zephyr, who are entire like bodies of civilization that have many of these floating islands. You're not the only one. And a lot of the lore of the game is set up such that the other players around the table are other divers from other islands, that are colonized by the settler, right? And that there was kind of a split in humanity's progress when the dust started to take over and really wreak havoc of the people who were fortunate enough and bold enough to make that step into, I'm going to like have this new life in the sky, and escape the dust, or I am staying here and technology will protect me and we will make this bubbled civilization, right? And weather the storm, if you will, which is the colony. So we certainly had some fun with the kind of the dwellers, who are like our um, colony members who are not elite culturalists or seekers, who are like the guys in the armor. We have names for all of these different factions.
Yeah.
And I love that like a dweller would kind of like come out and, you know, start to recruit allies and have this as part of their journey as well. I just wanted to make sure that the player had the agency to make the choice, right? And that's kind of why we made sure to base them in a very goal oriented civilization. So they have a mission, but they have flexibility in how to accomplish that mission. It's always my favorite thing as a game designer, right? Like, tell me what the goal is, don't tell me how to do it. As a player, that's what I want. So that's what I try and give to
Very
players.
like escape room mentality, and it's fascinating. Like I said, you know, as a player, you know, just hand me Dust to Dust, and I know nothing about it, know nothing about you, have never watched, you know, this back and forth. And immediately, you know, my thought is, oh, I must be a colony member, like, you know, because that's just you equate to the guy you look like, you know, essentially you play that role. But I like the idea of just like the self-identification here, and you can just kind of play whatever role you need to play to accomplish the goal. That's, to me, that's fascinating. So, you know, I'm excited for people to get their hands on the game and actually start, you know, because that's the thing. You know, leave a comment down below, let us know what you think, and everybody's like, oh, I don't have the game. I don't know.
Go pre-order the game. I'll send you a
Right.
copy, please.
Right. Yeah. He'll literally ship one to your house. All you have to do is pre-order. But yeah, no, it's absolutely fascinating. And I guess this kind of turns, not to shift gears hard, because everything's going to circle back to Dust. But you know, talk to me about your support team through this. I hear the name Bonnie John constantly. Like, he's your artist. Work he's done is phenomenal. The concept art on the Kickstarter, if you guys haven't gone and looked at that yet, go look at it. The iterations from where these cards came from, like, I remember them when they were on index cards and they didn't even have pictures yet. Like, that was, you know, again, circle back to my kitchen table, February of 2019. And you know, talk to me about your team, because I know there's Will Pay as well, but like, how tight was that team you were working with, from, you know, from concept for the game to, you know, play testing to getting these guys on board? You know, what did that team look like? You know, how did you guys build the game from ground to, from dust to where we're at now?
Yes. Um, yeah, so it started with paper prototyping. I think a lot of the thing I love to make sure that I get across to other people who want to make a game or design a game in general, is that the concept of something coming from nothing isn't real, and that everything happens from references, and make a prototype and try it out and play with the ideas and iterate, right? And the thing gets better as it is worked on and as more people join.
Yeah.
Um,
An idea doesn't
so
have to be perfect to start. Yeah.
exactly, and it's not going to be. Your game probably won't be fun at the beginning. Um, so yeah, I mean, I did 3 versions of it on index cards before you guys saw it, right? And tested with a couple of friends here in New York. I went to the Game Center, which is run by NYU's game design department, and got a couple of pieces of feedback from different like game design students and professors there, and iterated on that core index card concept. And I was like, how do I make this fun? and kind of pushed it to the point that you guys saw it about 2 years ago. And then I brought in Bonnie as actually a reference from Will. Like Will and I have been friends for years at this point, and I was like, Will, I have prospected artists. I was on ArtStation. I was on Instagram. I was like mining for who could do this art, and I needed so much of it, right? To realize this game, and at the time I was only pitching making, I think it was like between 5 or 8 allies of each faction, right? And very, very limited scope. Like it's my
Yeah.
first game. Um,
Right.
let's just make it happen.
Yeah.
And Will was like, man, I know I've been friends with Bonnie for a long time. He's great. Here's his portfolio. Bonnie at the time was finishing his degree in animation in Florida. I just got to meet him in person for the first time like 2 weeks ago.
Nice.
And we did a phone call. We really hit it off on the concept of the world, kind of what we just talked about. Of it's Ghibli influence, but it's darker and it's got some Dark Souls stuff. And I want hidden lore and I want nuggets. And here are the different faction descriptions. He just got really excited about it, and we worked together to basically define what a reasonable budget is. Right, I'm a huge believer in paying the team for their time, especially art and design and all these other pieces to make the game happen. And I brought him on. I hired him to draw the whole game, which was a
When,
wild thing
when
to
was
agree.
it? Like I said, I circled
Yeah.
back to we keep referencing 2 years because that's my first
Hmm.
experience with the game, but
Yeah.
like that was February 2019, pre-COVID. So,
Yeah.
or yeah, no,
So I had
February
just
2020.
hired him.
Yeah, February
Yeah.
2020. So yeah,
Yeah.
literally.
I hired him that month, I think, and then we started concepting art pretty soon after I saw you guys, and then everything went into lockdown.
Yeah.
And basically, we did art direction and sketches and like actual screen sharing on Photoshop while Bonnie painted every weekend and sometimes nights during the week for between 3 and 10 hours to do art direction for the cards and concepts and what is the reference for this and how does it look and continuous feedback and iteration across 44 unique illustrations. And
Yeah.
we did that for a year and a half, right? So through the entire COVID huge lockdown before vaccines came out.
Is it
And
44? I'm sorry, the number 44. I know there's 10 relics,
yeah,
30
the
allies.
playmats are also unique illustrations. Each of the relics is a unique illustration, and then the
Yeah,
resource cards as well.
yeah,
Um,
fair enough. All right, 44. Yeah.
so yeah, that's we put all those things together, and then I think it was getting toward the summer, and Will had a little bit of freelance time open up. I had kind of a skeleton of a card template that Bonnie and I had made, and we were like, "This doesn't look great," and the art looks fantastic, but like this, it's like I don't feel it's super readable. I'm not getting great feedback from playtesters. Like we did a test print of the template itself with placeholder art, and people were like, oh, "This is a little hard to read. It's a little hard to use."
Yeah.
And Will is a master of type and of symmetry and layout and that communication element, and he's also a package designer and a brand designer. So he really had all of our missing pieces, like all of our weaknesses were covered. And Bonnie and Will had known each other since they were in high school, right? In the same way that we do, which is hilarious to me. Like I've seen old photos of them with like goofy hair and stuff. In the same way that like Christian and I have that photo of like us with purple hair. And maybe we'll put that in the Instagram or something.
Yes.
Um, get them. But yeah, we brought Will on that summer. He made the like gorgeous sketch of the template we have today that I always call like our minimalist movie poster face. That stripped out every other element that we didn't need and like got us to full art cards basically, and then we kept iterating on it from there. Um, and then later in the year, I mean, we brought in Nancy to do gifs and animations for us of the initial card art. We brought in Scott to do a 2-day photo shoot with me.
Yeah.
And that's where all of our beautiful, those are photos on the Kickstarter of
Yeah. Yeah,
pre-production version.
yeah, it's all on
Um,
the Instagram too. All
yeah,
that stuff is linked down below. Go check it out. Like those
yeah,
photos were awesome to watch
yeah.
it happen, especially on those stories. It was really cool.
Yeah, and like we made the sets, right? We like actually bought black sand and we found a sheet of rusty metal and we like had little condensed air cans and we're spraying the sand around and had air
Found
plants.
of
Yeah,
rusty. Yeah.
I mean, we're in Bushwick, man.
New York. Yeah.
You can find it here in New York. And yeah, and then I also want to make sure I shout out Van for the video work. It like unbelievable. The like quality of the animations and the force of those videos
Yeah.
that
Circle
he
back
just
to me
did
stealing
all of.
all the intros for these. Yeah, I intro with your trailer on almost every one of these videos. You guys saw it at the start of this one, and yeah, it's
Yeah, and
really
that's all Van's work and like enormous praise for him on all of that. We also did a 2-day shoot with him, right? And you know, I'm so grateful to really everybody that I listed there for like letting us work together and like carving out a budget that was reasonable that we could make a game. Right? It's all self funded for me. So like this is totally a passion project. Like my first game, want to get it out into the world, and want to make sure that everybody that worked on it was paid, right? And paid fairly. Um,
yeah,
so
100%.
that was a huge priority for me. Just hoping to start an indie studio the right way. You know, run the business the right way.
Heck yeah. And I do want to ask the question because I've had this asked now more often than not.
Yeah.
Who did you get for the voiceover work for the intro videos? Who did you get for the voiceover for the how-to video? Because they're so it's just unique. Like it's you
Yeah.
can tell it feels so big budget, but I'm like, who did Spencer get for this? Like I don't, like who do you have the names like or like
I
how?
am. I'm gonna look in my folders some more. So basically, Van found them on yeah, like on an exchange and like found their profiles.
He said,
I'll
"Hey,
send this
read
after.
this and let me record it." Yeah.
Yeah, and boy oh boy, shout out to Van for like giving them feedback too and for
Yeah.
coaching a little bit on especially the how-to side. But man, yeah, he like prospected for them. He sent me a couple of ones and we were both immediately like the guy that does the big lore sections in the intro, we were like, yes, him, done, sold, book him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um and it
Incredible.
was fantastic. So yeah, we'll shout him out in the description.
Yes, 100%. So, I guess the piece I wanted to kind of get on, and then we'll kind of wind down from there, is talk me through some of the iterations. You spoke to it a little bit, just how card art started with Bonnie and just the iterations of all that, but the references to all the other cards that were interlaid. I know that Ferntip Hair is being chased by the two wolves. And forgive me for forgetting the key part of that name. But I do want to talk to that too. Every name is like two adjectives kind of like clumped together, which is really neat. Like everything is like kind of tells you what it's trying to do. But that's the one I always pick up on because it's bunny rabbit. So yeah, I can't tell if they're pals or if they're chasing them. I don't. Maybe you want to
Oh,
speak to.
they're chasing them. We
They're
improved
chasing.
the art a little bit more. Yeah,
Oh no.
we got some slant on that front wolf now, and
Poor,
it's a little more angular.
Earned it, man. He's not long for this world, but
Poor guy.
yeah, it's the art iterations, and you can see it in the Kickstarter. How all that stuff came to be. But like, what were your aha moments from when you guys were choosing how you wanted the cards to look? Were you a key piece in bringing these cards to life? Were you the one pitching the different art directions, or what? Yeah, talk to me about that. Who
Sure.
came up with these art pieces? Was it mostly Bonnie? Were you the one, hey, I do want this giant guy sitting on a rhino, who came up with
Yeah.
what?
Yeah, totally. It was really collaborative. I mean, I think I came to Bonnie with a pretty specific vision for what this should be, right? Like I came to him with I want a story in every card. I want this to feel like a setting. I want the lore to be very deep. Um, that meant, I mean, our first big aha moment and expansion of scope is that everything needed a background, right? And everything needed a setting, and that's not something that as a TCG player you actually think about very much. But when you look
No.
at every trading card game card, they don't have backgrounds,
Yeah, make the comparison to the base set of Pokemon. Like
right?
yeah,
It's
right,
just the Pokemon, right?
right,
They're on a gradient, or they're on a solid color, or they're the creature, right? And they look great and they're posed in a dynamic way, but they don't fit into a world. So that was the
yeah,
first part that we really had to lean into, and was a serious amount more work for Bonnie, and we certainly adjusted for all of that. Um, from that point, I mean, we basically worked in this process where I would write him a brief of, here is the animal, or like rough sketch of the robot, or rough sketch of the armored guy or lady that we want in this particular card. I generally would also provide something like, here's the story of the card, right? So here's what this person is doing, here's what I see them as doing in the world, here is a proposition for what that background should look like. And I would often give Bonnie a couple of references of, this character reminds me of the golem from Moonlighter, and the creatures from Star Wars on the Rain Planet, right? And like kind of the merger of those things, and say like, here you go, like here are all the things that I'm thinking about with this character, Bonnie. Like
right.
go. And then he would do usually some like black and white sketches, proportions, and how things would look. And I would be like, that looks great, or that doesn't. And then we would go back and forth on that visual expression from the references and the briefs, and how the background would look. And then usually it was iterative from there. So it would be like, here's the rough pass, and then here's the background. And then we would improve and go from there.
Yeah, and I think that's so fascinating. You talk about just the aesthetic of your game's never perfect out the gate. This whole process took what, a year and a half, to get it down to where we're at now, and you
Yeah.
guys are probably still iterating on the set that you sent out to the guys to demo.
Yeah.
It's just it speaks to letting doing this the right way. There's not quote unquote there's the lazy way, but there's the quick way, and then there's the let's do this right. If we're gonna do this and we're gonna throw this out to people, let's do it right. Let's get it done the right way. And I think it's so cool seeing the lore play to the game mechanic, play to the aesthetic, play towards the player's feelings towards it, and it all just kind of wraps into this beautiful, neat little package that says, "Hey, I'm a game, and you want to play it, and I'm gorgeous, and yeah, it's cool." My words can't describe it because I'm bad with them, but I'll let you close us out with that here in a moment. But
You
the
did
thing I
great.
thanks, man. The thing I did want to speak to is, you talked about it in your Kickstarter video, the one that you posted, but you said that this game came from the darkest times of COVID, and I've seen plenty of people speak to it, what they've accomplished with the COVID time. People had a ton of time to sit at home. They were either homebound from work, X, Y, and Z, and there was either I can just wait out the storm, or I can do something productive with my time. And this is literally a product of your time with it. Can you speak to that at all? Like, what was it like? And again, you even brought it up earlier. You just met Bonnie John in person two
Yeah.
weeks ago.
Yeah.
How has COVID affected your whole process through this, for better or for worse?
Yeah. I mean, I am very grateful to this game, I think, for maintaining a lot of my mental health and optimism through COVID. It was amazing to be working on something and have a team of people that I would see every week, that would have material progress on something that we were all excited about, that was new, we were putting out into the world, and that we all believed in and we were pulling on together. That, even though it was remote, right, was so powerful in the span of, every day is the same. All these things are grindy. I can't do the things that I love in the world anymore. It was a new thing, right? And it was new for all of us through that process. And we would have a great time, and we would be doing art and updates and template stuff. And we'd grab a beer and hang out, and also talk about life. And the date that Bonnie just went on, right? Like we would have that connection. The other piece of that that I'm so grateful for is that like it gave me more of a reason to reach back out to you guys.
Yeah.
And we had a thing that we could all do together. That wasn't like let's grind Hearthstone ladder, but that was like let's play test this game and like talk about feedback and like be constructive with each other and kind of have that team as well. Right, like that was so special to me, and is still.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, yeah, put it
to
towards,
have that glue.
literally today, we're literally sitting on Discord with each other, Christian in the background. Like, I hung out with Gorby 2 days ago to record a tabletop with the four of us because everybody's getting vaccinated now. Shout outs to all
Yeah,
that. But it's as the world kind of comes back to, it's this, we've got this neat piece now to bring us all together. And you're right, being able to talk to you guys middle of the year, when we had that conversation towards the end of last year of like, oh, the world's still kind of shut down. I got married in November, and it was as much as I, wanted you to be here, I understood. Her and I made that connection. It was just like, this is going to be tough for a lot of our friends and family, but we still went through it, and to be able to do this with you, to have this connection with everybody, you spoke to it perfectly. It's just it was nice to just have that human element
mhm,
without necessarily having to be in front of each other.
yeah.
So
So it was really special in that way. I mean, and like I caught up with my friends from Ireland, right, who I hadn't seen in years,
yeah,
since I've been back, and only individually and all together in one room where, I had something to do with my family. I had something to do um, with local New York game designers, right? And folks who are working on their own projects and, hey, come join me on Discord and do a playtest session on Tabletop Simulator. I know it's going to be frustrating, but we're all going to have a great time anyway.
right.
Uh,
Yeah.
so it's
Everybody knows what they're getting into. Yeah, and it's awesome.
Yeah. So it meant a lot. I mean, I think the interesting downsides of that, right, are like I've been working like 2 jobs basically for the last 2 years, right, and like I do have a full-time job that is demanding in the world, and that's been a lot for me. So I am delighted to have the campaign out. I am so happy that people are really excited about the game and
Yeah.
it's finally going to get into people's hands. Um, I'm also really excited about like the project not being like quite as much on top of another job. And So I think that was the hard part of it is like it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Making a game is a lot of work. I know everybody says that, but there are so many parts to think about. Be that the rule book, be that the branding, be that the marketing and PR outreach of how do you do this thing. Um, Being in indie is really tough. So I'm looking forward to being out in the world and depending on what happens with the game, right? Maybe partnering with a publisher and distributor to get it into more people's hands, for example, and
Yeah.
making that process more sustainable for me as a human and
See it
my
on
own
the shelf at your
mental health.
local, yeah,
Yep,
game store. Yeah. That's it's so cool, and I can't even begin to tell you how proud of you I am. It's so awesome to see like the success of this. And again, for those of you who haven't yet, please, the Kickstarter link is in the description below. You can read it at the bottom of the screen. Like, go check this out. Like, I can't tell you how refreshing this game is amidst everything that we've been through over the past, year and a half. And finally looks like we're starting to come out of that tunnel. And it's just to have this on the other end is just super cool. And, now like, I'm really looking forward to getting together with you, to getting together with, Christian and Gorby and everybody, and just sitting at the table and actually playing this in person is the way, everything's intended. I can't tell you how excited I will be when that moment happens and
yeah,
we're all in front of each other again, and it's so cool. So,
me too.
um, the thing I wanted to end this with is your takeaways. What are your takeaways from the game as it stands? Right now, and then as an audience member, what takeaways do you want us to leave with? What how would you Yeah, and I guess that's just the best way to say it is how would you like your audience or anybody picking this game up, what takeaway do you want them to walk away with when they see the game on the shelf or they're,
Mm,
opening it for the first time?
yeah. First takeaway, please pre-order the game. Please pledge on Kickstarter.
Yes.
We need your help. Please, please, please. Get us to make some holographic cards. I would love that. I really want to make some cards holographic, and we need a little
I
bit of extra funding to do that.
holographic art prints. That's what I want.
Yes, that is my first takeaway for the audience. But that is just my inner marketing guy.
Yeah,
From a
valid.
game design perspective, right, and from I think somebody picking up this game, um, I think the first thing is explore the world, right? Look in the backgrounds of the cards, read the flavor text, like get into it, right? And take your time looking at the different cards and what they do and how they feel, and how they interact with each other. I think is a huge strength of the game, and we really thought about it a lot. So if you see something in the background of a card, or you see a character with an object, that is meaningful and intentional.
Yeah.
Like I will spoil one in that Fuse Gatekeeper has a key on his belt that is the gate key relic, right? And like that art is the same on purpose. And there is a lore story for why that is, as part of what we've done. So there are gems like that for you to find everywhere. And Bonnie and I worked really hard to do that. Um, and they are not not always obvious. Um, and and that is a core part of how we want the game to be lasting and really fun. Um, and then I think the other one is what we've discovered through different playtests and what I think the feedback from both you and Christian and Gorby and everybody who's tried the game is, diversity is often the key to winning, and often the key to doing well. A lot of the time, it's about distributing the strategic line, as opposed to going super narrow on a card or two cards. Um, I think that's really different from other deck building games. Um, and then my last fun tip, because I know a lot of people are going to be coming from Dominion, for playing this game, you shouldn't buy energy cells. Don't do it. It's a trap. Um, that's my only strategic pro tip, to do. Dusting is important. Thin decks are important. You don't need more money, I promise.
Yeah, and I will speak to that note as we begin to wrap up. Is just, and you'll see it in some future videos. We have some tabletop with 4 players coming here in the next couple of days, so stay on the lookout for that. Christian and I are going to commentate one. I'm going to get Gorby on the horn, and we're gonna commentate another. But there are multiple turns where players have just extra energy at the end of the turn, but haven't dusted a card that turn. And there was a thought process on the table, and you guys won't hear it because we're commentating over it, but it was like, oh, with these extra 2 energy, I can just buy 2 more energy. And it's like, well, how
Yep.
about you just bust one of those and just let the rest go to your discard, man? Wink, wink. So, and
Maybe you should give that a
yeah,
shot.
and it worked out. It worked out. So yeah, the game's fascinating, guys. Where can people find you? Obviously, all the links are in the description below. But Spencer, this is your time. Shoutcast yourself. Where can people find the game? Where can they follow you? Where can they follow the game?
Sure. Yeah. So the game is at Dust to Dust Game on Instagram and Twitter. We're doing updates as the Kickstarter wraps, as we get into fulfillment. We might even have some late pledge options, should you wish to get in on the first edition, after the Kickstarter is successful, as it will be. And the Kickstarter link is in our Twitter, in our Instagram. That's probably the easiest way to find it. You can also,
And
of course,
literally
search
directly below us here. Yeah.
right there. And you can, of course, search for it on Kickstarter as well if you happen to be there. Dust to Dust is the title, of the project. If you want to follow me, I am at Swan Strats on Instagram and Twitter as well. And we have other links to other folks that have worked on the project on our website if you want to explore more about the game, and even do a digital demo, on Tabletop Simulator. And that website is dust2dust.games with an S. On the end of it, there's a demo section, there's a press kit, there are digital assets. Should you wish to explore the space, see the full credits for the game, any other facts about it, it is all there for you to explore.
That's awesome. So yeah, check it out, guys. Spencer, thank you so much. This has been a blast.
Thank you.
Thanks for letting us get into your head about the game, and I'm excited to see what the people think about it. So leave your comments below, guys. Let us know what you think. I'll see if I can't get Spencer to get in on the comments section and answer some stuff for you if you guys have questions that I can't necessarily answer. But please, please, please check out the Kickstarter. Go support it. Let's get this off the ground. Let's get some hollows into the hands of people, and yeah, let's just have fun. I can't wait to talk about this game with the masses here in a few months. It's going to be a blast, and expect more content. I'll create it as long as you guys are watching it. So,
I'm
Spencer,
so
thanks.
excited about that.
I appreciate you. And yeah, guys, we'll see you next time. It's been a blast.
Thanks, everybody.